Right, so we were talking about, remind me again.
Well, I think we discussed some competitions, didn't we? Best competitions we were talking about.
Yep.
So I think I mentioned that I don't enter too many. I was entering AIPP state nationals.
Yep.
Focus Awards is a good one with, as we said, a great
An
judge
excellent
here.
judge,
Yeah,
yes,
how about that?
yes, fantastic.
Yeah, so enter the Focus Awards
Yep.
with a judge like that. Epson Panel Awards.
Yep.
And they're probably the ones that I do. The International Landscape Photographer of the Year with the portfolio of 4.
Yep.
I love that one because of I love the portfolio thing. I think
Yep.
that's a great competition format.
Is that why you think you do well in the state?
I think so. Yeah. Look, I think sometimes my images can be misunderstood individually.
Yep.
And sometimes I often will just scrape into a portfolio final.
Right.
But then when the images are read together, they tend to kind of, I guess, complement each other and help tell the same story.
Okay.
Often, yeah. So I quite enjoy that portfolio style
Yep.
competition, yeah.
And how do you go about then, both of you, in terms of preparing your photographs for a competition, and what advice do you give the people watching about entering competitions?
Yeah, well, for me, it's all about. I'm looking for images that are simplistic, with great light and a strong subject, and then preparation-wise, you're just looking to just finish the image at the highest level possible, so you're not getting any deducted points. So the worst thing that can possibly happen to you is you've got an incredible image with great emotional impact and a great story, but then you got a crooked horizon or some dust spots or some blown out highlights or shadows. So one of the interesting things about photo competitions is because you're generally not allowed to add any description or title or whatnot, there's only a few limited things that the judges have to assess your photographic skill. One of them being how you handle your highlights and your shadows. So if you're going to purposefully block your shadows or blow your highlights, it needs to be fairly obviously contributing to the story, or potentially a judge is going to say, well, this has been handled a little bit sloppily, I guess, and potentially deduct some pretty serious points for that. So, just make sure it's technically correct, I suppose, technically correct. Looking for, as I said, simplicity, great light, strong subject, and a strong story if possible.
Yep. What about you, Ignacio?
Well, I recommend people to enter competitions all the time because they, I've been entering for a few years, and it makes you a better photographer, I think. And just to look at different competitions around the world and look at the images that win or become finalists, and what are the ingredients that all these images have. For me, the most important thing is composition.
Yep.
And composition for me comes before light. For some people, or for some landscape photographers, light comes first, but I think for me composition is the key. Composition and subject matter is also really important. So if you have that, and then you have a great story and light, then that's a brilliant photo. So as simple as possible, strong composition and subject, and that makes an excellent image, I guess. Yeah.
But I did hear, as we talked about before, that you have a hidden spreadsheet.
Yeah, I do. Well, I don't.
Based on
I
the
don't.
fact that you've seen some
I've
commonalities.
had a spreadsheet. Yeah, it doesn't. I don't have it today. But yeah, back years ago, probably 5 or 6, 7 years ago, I had a disappointment in a photography awards. Did particularly poorly on some images that I thought would do rather well, and it dawned on me that maybe within the top 50 images or top 20 images that get released after the awards, that there might be some patterns within there. So I raced home, got the Excel spreadsheet out, I did that, and I put a whole bunch of things, criteria at the top, simplicity, strong subject, great light were a couple of them, but I had saturated colour, black and white, strong lines, strong shapes were in there, these kind of things. And I found there was a very strong formula. 90% of the images were simplistic in nature.
Right.
And what I mean by simplicity, it means no distractions.
Yeah.
And a distraction for me is an element within the image that doesn't directly contribute to the story you're trying to tell. So if you've got something that's surplus to the story, then try and crop it out, remove it, clone it out from the image if you can. So that simplistic nature, leave those distractions out. Less is more.
Yeah.
And the judges often, particularly on the online awards, the judges are judging these images within seconds sometimes.
And they have a lot of images.
And a lot of images, yeah, absolutely. There's
find-
nothing wrong with judging them within those seconds.
Yep.
But you need to communicate your story very
They want
clearly
to
and
find
very
the subject,
simply.
find the
yeah.
subject quickly, and find the story quickly.
Subject story. So simplicity, 90%. That's a huge pattern that can't be ignored. Strong subject was about 80% of images contained an identifiable subject where you could just go, that's what the photo is of, straight away. And great light was the third of the really strong ones. And what I mean by great light is, I'd consider these aerials great light, great tonality, I suppose, is a better way of describing it. Not necessarily traditional great light, but, beautiful tonality or complementary tonality, I suppose.
So it doesn't have to be taken under the best light, so to speak,
No.
or the golden hour or
No,
anything
not necessarily,
like that.
no. In fact, we were mentioning before, probably 80% of my portfolio was taken, sometime throughout the middle of the day.
Right.
I love stormy overcast light and those kind of dramatic conditions. Number one, because you've got the dramatic sky, but the second element is you've got a fairly flat palette of light which you can then paint in Photoshop a little bit of spotlight or directional light. So I love that stuff.
Yeah, I think we all start photographing landscapes for sunrise and sunset. The light is beautiful, of course, but I find myself photographing now more and more during the day, overcast, storms, more dramatic skies.
Is it because
what I like.
Is it because the sort of sunrise sunsets are just a bit cliche? And
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
overdone?
and I don't know. It's just I'm moving towards that in that direction at the moment. And I was mentioning before that in the last 3 years, probably all my upper entries have been photographed in the middle of the day, aerial stuff or. And not sunrises or sunsets, but So
the thing I find with the sunrise sunsets sometimes too is it's very difficult to tell another story other than look at this gorgeous sunrise or sunset. So for me, I like to tell poetic stories throughout my images. If you've got this and I love a blazing red or pink sunset like the next person, but it's really hard. That dominates the image so much. It's hard. It's hard for it to be anything else.
You can't take it anywhere.
And it's gorgeous, but it's the same when it comes to judging. I think the judges have seen every kind of beautiful sunrise and sunset there's ever going to be. So it needs to be rather special to stand out in a competition format, and it can be easier, I think, to tell maybe a more dramatic story with an overcast sky or something like that, possibly.
So how much work has been done to the photographs that you're putting into competitions?
Oh wow, for me, lots. Like lots.
Yeah.
Particularly in the last 12 months, I've been really getting into like this romanticism style, and I mean, that means so many different things to so many different artists, but for me it's just creating this fanciful style of landscape, and that can be bringing mountains from one location and rivers from others and combining them all together, and you say, well, how is that fair? Like, it's not, is it? It's just in some competition sense it's not, but some comps are open, and the open ones, I think the photographers that are doing that kind of thing, they probably have a distinct advantage.
Which begs the question, should we be declaring whether or not it's a composite or whether it's just a straight single capture?
Oh, look, I think in the ideal world, you just split the comps.
I think so, yeah.
Just
I think
split them
that's
to
the right thing
open,
to do.
go for your life, to single capture.
But then there's competitions that aren't splitting them. So they're
should we like tag them? Yeah, so that's known.
Single.
Yeah, well, if they are not splitting it and you're a purist, then you don't enter, I guess. Right, I don't know.
I mean,
if you don't want
to hope that your single image, if that's yours, is going to compete against something that's a composite.
It's a tough one. It's a real tough one. I mean,
you were saying that you're happy enough not to divulge that information, but if somebody does ask you, you'll have
on a social media sense, I certainly I wouldn't divulge that up front as a detail. I like, as I said, the romanticism of the art to speak for itself, so the finished product to be all about the finished product rather than the process that got there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine on a personal level for me to do that. And if someone asks, then I'm more than happy to run them through all the details that have gone into that. And often I'll do behind the scenes YouTube videos of my images, so everyone's pretty aware of what I'm up to.
Open about what you do. On
a competition sense, it's tough, because if you say, okay, in a perfect world, well, we should just be judging the final product. Well, I mean, that's all good and well, but when you've got photographers that are trying to capture that perfect image in camera, competing against someone like me that takes mountains from Iceland and rivers from Norway and combines them all together, I personally think that's a bit unfair. But I mean, I'm not writing the rules at the same time, so I'll jump in there and enter my imagery in there.
So therefore, how believable does your composite image need to be?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. For competitions, it needs to be very believable, or you're going to get bombed out real quick. As soon as someone thinks it's a composite, and I suppose for a lot of my imagery, I'm using relatively iconic locations and scenes. So, you've got an iconic Icelandic waterfall there with mountains from another location, then some of the judges are going to pick that straight away. But do they like it, or do they mark it down just because they know it's? Well, I don't know.
That's
it's
where
so tough, isn't it?
The bias of the judge will come in.
Yeah, it depends on how they feel, or.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, at the end of the day, competitions aren't perfect. They're great for learning, but I'm finding now myself, and that's probably why I'm not entering so many, that I guess I've learned and grown through the competition scene, but now I want to push the boundaries that probably don't fit with inside competitions.
Right.
So I know that I won't get rewarded for some of the crazy, weird stuff that I want to do now, so I just won't enter those into competitions anymore. Yeah. Because
wouldn't somebody watching this might argue that if you're looking for it to be as real as possible, but even though it's not, because it's a composite, aren't you being deceitful then?
Well,
if you're trying to pass it off as being something that's real, even though it's not.
Well, you could take that.
Try to create the best possible image I can with the elements that if I have an idea. If it looks real, you try to get the picture to look real. And,
I mean,
I
suppose I'm starting to head into that surrealism style where it's not about reality and it's overtly away from reality, that no one would ever consider it to be real. I suppose that's what that genre is more about. But I mean, interesting actually on that topic of deceiving the viewer or whatnot. Throughout my research through Romanticism, I stumbled across the fact that back in the early 1800s, right, before photography was even invented, the job of the landscape painter was to set up the easel and essentially capture reality.
Right.
And then the Romanticists come along and they said, it's not enough for us.
Right.
We want to capture the mood and the atmosphere and that incredible light that we saw the other day that was flooding through. So they started creating these ultra reality style images, which were diverting away from reality. So I guess the point being that this conversation is as interesting as it is. It's been going on for 300 odd.
Right.
It's not going to go away. You know what I mean? So it's tough. There's essentially what I'm doing is replicating what the original Romanticists of the landscape painting world were doing back in the 1850s, creating visions of these landscapes. And look, occasionally I make something completely fanciful, like I was the example there, but sometimes I'll do something as simple as in Tasmania at Cradle Mountain, I captured this scene of Cradle Mountain, and look, the iconic boat shed was just out of frame over here, but I made sure I grabbed a frame of that and just shifted it around in there because it was the essence of Dove Lake, and to not have the boat shed in what is the essence of Dove Lake for me was potentially even getting further away from my reality, or the way I felt about that particular scene. So, but again, I was questioned by a few photographers on that one. I said, no, absolutely. They said, is that composition possible? No, it's not. I've moved the boat shed around a few notches and I replaced the sky and I did this and that, and not everyone's going to appreciate that. I can understand that. That's completely okay, but I think, rambling on, aren't I? I think
it's an interesting discussion.
The other thing that I often tell my workshop students is, and it's to do with the boundaries of photography. And I think the definition and the boundaries of photography are very personal to each photographer. And I think where a lot of the heat of the debate comes from is when another photographer says, well, hang on a second, you can't do that because it doesn't fit in my box of what defines photography. And I say, well, hang on a minute, your box is not the same shape as how I define photography. So I think at the end of the day, we just got to kind of understand that there's many different definitions of photography. And I think it's definitely highlighted by competitions, because as soon as you put a prize in front of it, then that's going to create issues. But in the general world, there's many definitions of photography. And the fact that I like to replace skies, stretch mountains, you know, take things out, add things in for the sake of the story, you don't have to be comfortable in doing that for yourself, but you should be okay with me doing that, I think. At least that's my philosophy on it.
Right.
Yeah.
You do that? You change the skies and stuff?
Sometimes.
I think he has well confessed that that's what he does.
Absolutely, I'm 100% changed.
Why do you guys do that? Why do you?
I don't do it that often. I don't do it that often, but I do. Yeah, I process my image.
Yeah.
Quite a bit, but yeah.
Because you just see it as it's available, so why not do it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if it's going to improve the image or the composition, but as if I go to a trip and I bring some images, I process the ones that I like pretty quickly, and then out of those, I choose a few that I can like, where I can get more creative and use for competitions or fine art, or, and then on those ones I spend more time. But normally I spend a minute or two with my images, and then on those ones maybe half an hour, 1 hour. But I don't spend. I think you spend a lot of time on some of your shots.
Hours.
But I think maximum that I have spent with some of my images maybe 2 or 3 hours maximum. I don't spend more than that.
Are you printing them at home and printing sort of test prints before you produce the final one?
I don't print at home, but I do. I'll send my work off to the printer months in advance, get them back, have a look, tweak them, send them back again. And
I've heard of photographers putting them up on the wall and leaving them rest. And
if I had a nice space, I would do that.
Not quite in the camper van
not at the moment, and previous couple of years I haven't had a nice good studio space to kind of spread out, but I'd love to. If I had the room, I would definitely
we share
do
our
that.
work as well, and we, I get comments from these guys, and that's
how much of that happens before a competition where you'll send your pictures around to each other and get feedback on that?
We just do it for the APAS, really, I think, or for the state. I don't do it for
we
competition.
Don't worry about the other ones.
I enter the Travel Photography of the Year as well, which I've been entering that one for 6-7 years, and I enter the International Landscape Photography of the Year, and Head-On and Epson Awards. So I only check with you for the APAS, I think, for the nationals.
Yeah, so around that time we start sharing possibles and what do you think?
Get some ideas, and it's just difficult to choose,
Do you find it difficult to choose your own pictures for competitions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Does it have to work as a portfolio, as individual images? Are you going to, want to get, going for the points or for goals, or you want to, want everything to work as a portfolio, or different tonalities, similar? It's just,
photographers tend to fall in one of two camps. They're either very good at picking their own shots that are good and that may do well in competitions, and there's the other camp like me that generally don't like most of what I shoot, but then end up, when I do choose, I choose poorly.
It's hard. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, choosing is.
I seem to zig and zag, and then zig and zag the wrong direction.
Right. Some of my students, when they go on the workshops, they have amazing images, but some of them they don't know they are amazing. It's like crop it this way, or change the, or but this is an amazing shot, and they would be choosing others. And but depends on the shot. You can just send. Specific shots work in different competitions, so depends on the competition. You send something. Anyway, not everything works for the same competition. So,
what's the end goal for both of you? So project yourself forward for another 40 years or so. You're at the end of your
40 years.
40 years or more than that? 50?
No, 40's enough, I think.
40's ancient.
Yeah, get another 40, I'll be happy.
What do you guys want to have achieved by the end of that?
I'd like to continue being healthy and being able to travel around the world. I have still many locations and countries that I want to discover. So yeah, I have a huge list, and the more I travel, the more I want. It's just so much to see around the world, and my aim is to actually produce and publish books, and I have a few projects. I want to publish a book about Patagonia and about the Atacama and the high deserts. Another book, a personal book about 25 years photographing, which will include wildlife and portraits, people, festivals and landscapes. So that's a big project, But because I think your work, has to be seen and published. Like if you don't do stuff like that, then it's just going to end up on your laptop, on your computer, or your hard drive, and no one will see it. And so, if you publish your book, you have a better chance. Tell a story about those images and why it's important to you. And so, that's
it's a big legacy to leave, isn't it? To be able to publish something.
Yeah. So I'd like to continue traveling and publishing books, and that's
fantastic.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, for me. Photographically, it's about, I'm always trying to explore who I am as a photographer, and I don't think I've ever completely got to there. As I said previously, at the moment I'm pushing into more surrealist photography and the illustrative stuff, and even less reality, I suppose. So that's pretty exciting, moving in that direction. For me, success is about, well, for me to do what I'm doing now, my family and myself had to sacrifice a whole lot, including selling the house and all the possessions. And we've lived very simply for the last 5 years, including living under our parents' roofs for a number of years there, which is, we're very grateful to be able to do that, but at the same time it was quite a sacrifice. So for me, just the ability to be, I suppose, put a roof back over my family's head in the form of a house on our own little block of land somewhere, that would be the absolute success for me, to put us back where we were once upon a time before I kind of selfishly went on this journey. But at the same time, although it was a selfish journey to take, it's benefited the family by me being much more happier and much more content at the same time. So yeah, absolutely, because you can have all the money in the world, or the possessions, or the house and whatnot, but if you're grumpy and your family's not going to want to interact with you and all that stuff anyway. So at the end of the day, it's been a worthwhile journey for me. Venturing into professional photography. Yeah.
Unreal. So how do people follow more of your work? So just hand out your social media feeds and URLs, websites.
So Instagram and Facebook, Adam Williams Photography, and then probably the best website to get me on is australianphotographer.com, where you'll find the education links and whatnot there too.
And everyone should be signing up for those videos.
Absolutely, yeah. If you want creative freedom in your photography, that's the place to get it.
There's the sell right there. God, who's not going to want to sign up after that?
Sounds pretty good, creative freedom, doesn't it?
It's just basically like saying to people, well, if you want to take a good picture, sign up. I mean, who's going to say, no, I'm happy taking shit pictures?
There's actually on the Easy Way Photography website, there's a little free course link on there anyway. So
nice.
You can jump on there, and I think it's 30 days and you get access to the first 6 or 10 videos or something or other,
How many videos have you got there in total?
There's 3 courses, they have about 35 each, so there's about 100 in total,
Right. Yeah. What's the length of each of them roughly?
The video? Yeah. They're only short, anywhere between 5 minutes and about 20 minutes.
That's good. My attention span is about 3 minutes.
So you can do one a day,
I should be able to get to the 5-minute mark.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, great. Thank you. And what about you?
You can find some of my images in Instagram, but I don't use it very much these days. I think the last post I posted in Instagram was last year. So
there you go.
Probably
does. And then Facebook I used, and then mainly my website, iptravelphotography.com.au, where you can find some of my images, all images as well, my latest ones in the final gallery, and my workshops and that one that we are doing next year in Peru.
I know. If you like what you've seen and you'd like to travel with Ignacio and I, we have a workshop in Peru next May. So jump on his website, travelphotography.com.au, and you'll see all the details there. So we'll wrap it up there, guys. Thanks, Adam. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you, mate.
For the
Cheers.
chat. So guys, if you can, please get down here before the 16th of June here at 45 downstairs, the gallery here at 45 Flinders Lane, where this fantastic exhibition is on. These two guys, plus the rest of the Light Collective boys, have put together a fantastic exhibition on Lake Eyre. So come on down and check it out. Thanks for watching. Cheers.
Cheers.
Good stuff.